You can take T.S. Eliot's Wasteland and you can see the way Dante has actually influenced him, and you can see the way Boccaccio has influenced Dante. And so T.S. Eliot wouldn't be T.S. Eliot if it wasn't for some of the writers that influenced him, like, early writers like Boccaccio. I'm Scott Postma, and I'm teaching Old Western culture for Roman Roads. The focus of Old Western culture is the philosophy, the literature, the history, and some theology that focuses to that time period that Lewis spoke of, where Christians and pagans were more like each other than either of them would be like the modern person today. So one of the things a student can expect is they're going to read the text. And so, for example, if we're going to read Plato, they're going to read the text, and then they're going to watch lectures from Wes Callahan. And depending on which year, there's other great scholars that have contributed to these lectures. And so they're going to watch the lecture, and then they're going to come to class, and we're going to have a Socratic dialogue and engage the different ideas that they've read about. And one of the things that we do uniquely in the classes that I teach is the students will engage in their own interpretive questions. So they'll each pick a question from the text. We'll actually engage in those questions, and that usually brings a little bit of extra interest to the class, because the students getting to engage in things that came up for them as they were reading the text. So the Greeks are going to cover the period from about the 9th century to the 4th century BC, reading great works like Homer and Plato and Aristotle, some of the historians like Thucydides and Herodotus. Romans are going to pick up about where the Greeks leave off, and we're going to read some of the historians like Tacitus and Livy, and move into some of the philosophers and early church fathers like Boethius and Tertullian. Christendom is going to pick up about the 4th century AD, and it's going to be some of the early church fathers, St. Benedict, and moving into the scholastic period with Aquinas, and the early Renaissance with Dante, and then the Reformation with writers like Calvin. I think the kind of student that's really going to benefit from a course like Old Western Culture is the student who is really engaged in ideas. They love reading old books. If they're a fan of, say, C.S. Lewis or Chesterton, they're going to really find that this Old Western culture is going to dive into those kinds of materials that shaped those men, that shaped those writers. And so a student who is really interested in the ideas that C.S. Lewis wrestled with, say, in the Chronicles of Narnia, they're going to look at the literature that Lewis looked at and see the ideas that shaped his thinking when he wrote these great books. And so the students have the opportunity here to interact with these ideas. They get to hear from Plato. Plato becomes the teacher. And so the teacher becomes more of a tutor, and the actual author is the student's teacher.